On today's episode,
What on earth am I doing now? I thought we'd have a go at a vintage boat restoration. Things have been a bit hectic with the little foamy models thrashing all over the sky, so maybe time to take a relaxing trip to a pond and resurrect this ancient model. By its stylings is definitely of the 1960s vintage. I had a look in my copy of Power Model Boats, which is the 1969 edition. It did look reminiscent of several of Vic Smead's models, but of course these days with the interweb, I think I've tracked it down now to be an Aerokits Sea Nymph. It has a classic installation from the 1960s, of course no radio gear, just a fixed rudder there, like the on-off switch has come out of somebody's bathroom. I guess that's a PP something or other, don't remember, probably a 9-volt battery. Up front, it still has the original motor installed, and there is so much crud on that, I cannot tell what type of motor it is at the moment. And if we turn the prop, feels like it should be salvageable. Speaking of the prop, again a classic arrangement from the time, a little cast prop there, and what appears to be a homemade brass rudder. To complete the ensemble, what more could you possibly want to complete the deal but an old Fleet radio control 27 meg. This was made in Hampshire, not far from where I used to live in the UK. And the classic, I guess this is probably a decade, maybe younger than the model itself, probably 1970s. Is there a date code on there? I'm having a big Clive moment. Looks like possibly 1976 or 77. Quite modern, really. Let's see if we can resurrect all of this. The idea will be to open up the back here and put a servo in so that we can make it radio control and see if she'll sail once more. I managed to remove the rear decking quite easily. I was quite surprised, having got a blunt instrument underneath it. The glue, not quite sure what type of glue it is, but it's definitely after 50 odd years quite brittle, so I'm going to have to check that nothing else is coming adrift. As you can see, I've removed the lever that was originally setting the rudder position. That is secured by 2 sets of 4BA lock nuts. Fortunately, I still have my set of BA spanners, and if you don't know what the BA is, it's the old British Association standard for threads and nut sizes. The other challenge that we're going to have is to connect a wire from the servo that's going to be connected to the rudder through to the receiver, which I'm intending to put on this bulkhead here. And I was concerned about that, but I did notice, and it's pretty strange, I'm not sure if you can see in there, it's got another bit of light, that the bulkhead doesn't actually go down to the bottom, so quite what went on there. I would have expected the skins to be glued to that, but clearly they're not. So I managed to pass this piece of copper wire and drilled a hole and managed to fish it out using an old knitting machine needle that has the hook on the end there. So now I can get the wire down to the servo at the back. In terms of the motor, I haven't been able to confirm exactly what model it is, and I've just temporarily soldered this connection on. I'm intending to try first with these little batteries. This is only 950 milliampere hour, nominally 7.4 volts. One of the reasons for choosing that is that the little receiver that I have has the BEC, the battery elimination circuit, but this can only tolerate up to 8.4 volts, I think. This will be driving the servo directly and the electronic speed controller. Yowzy, new technology. Well, 1994 technology, I think. This guy I built from a kit. This was by a company called Action Electronics, I think, and I think they're still going. This particular design also has a relay to be able to reverse the motor, so that we should be able to reverse out if we get stuck in any weeds or whatever. So we have the red and the black connect to the battery, and then we have the blue and the yellow which will connect to the motor. To check whether the motor is going to have enough oomph, I've just temporarily tacked those wires on there. We focus in on the propeller there for a moment and hook the the battery up to the motor. Obviously that would be at top speed, which should be more than adequate, I would think. I'm going to go ahead now and wire all those pieces in place. Then I can show you the results. Here is the solution that I've come up with for the steering arrangement. Just cobbled together part of an old servo arm, which I've lock nutted with the original nuts onto the top of the steering column there. The servo should have enough throw. Okay, it's not going to turn on a dime, I don't think. We will just have to see. At the business end, you can see that I've just mounted the receiver with some Velcro. That has the connection running back to the servo. Also the connection here to the speed controller. I've set the speed controller up. Now it has two potentiometers. One sets the dwell point, the off position between forward and reverse. The other sets the acceleration, how fast the revs increase in relation to the stick position. Looking at the transmitter now, I have to thank the original 1970s designers for leaving space in the bottom there for a 3-cell LiPo. Okay, it's just a tad over 12 volts. That doesn't appear to harm things. We turn on the transmitter now, and then turn on the receiver. With the steering now left and to turn right. That should be port and starboard, of course. The way to remember that is just say to yourself, is there any red port left? The left-hand side is port. Obviously, the reason for that is so that you can tell whether a craft, be it a boat or an aircraft, is coming towards you or going away. That enables you to make the correct decision. With regards to the throttle, you may just be able to hear the clicking of the relay there as we throttle up. And then the reverse. Clearly we don't want to go as fast in reverse as we do forwards. Everything is almost ready for our trip to the pond. I need to sort out some form of tube or straw for the antenna there. I've got a little bit of touching up work to do on the hull. Eventually I will obviously repaint this. I think I'll leave the top as it is. I quite like that vintage weathered look. Lastly, I've just found a bit of plastic to put in the front window there. If there's going to be anything splashing, more than likely it's going to be coming in this direction. I don't believe there's going to be a huge bow wave. Almost ready for the relaunch now. The front hatch is quite loose, so I've used the old rubber band trick. For a bit of 60s nostalgia, I've added antenna off an old radio. I've kept the overall length of the antenna the same, obviously. What appears to be missing, though, is a captain. Every ship has to have a captain. How about this jolly Jack Tar? This, in fact, was a memento given by my father to my mother when he went away to sea on his first ship, the HMNZ Achilles, off to join the British Pacific Fleet. And I have his photograph albums from that time, and I can tell you that he had a whale of a time. Let's get him stuck in, and then we're off to see if we can find a place to sail. Here we are at the awesome Lake Negritin, which is a reservoir fed by natural springs, hence the lovely colour. The captain seems to be drunk. Go. The noise that you heard at the end of the last clip was the propeller hitting a stone. I thought that the motor coupling had actually broken, but as we can see here now more closely, it's actually just popped off of the spline there. Now normally that wouldn't happen, but whoever built this cut the outer tube of the prop shaft flush with the bulkhead, which means that you couldn't put a lock nut on there to stop backwards and forwards movement. So that will just pop back in, but I'll need to find a better solution. I hope you enjoyed that cruise down memory lane as much as I did. With regards to the motor, it's crawled into my brain that it may be a Marx Monoperm. Despite its years, it still works very well.